All right, so I love answering these questions. It's one of my favorite things. I hope it's as helpful to you guys as it can be. What is one thing that you would tell your postgraduate self if you had the opportunity? What is one thing you would tell us? Good question. So I would say the one thing I would tell you guys, probably the most important thing that you need to do is a quote from one of my favorite speakers. His name is Jim Rohn. And he said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you work on your job, you'll make a living. Thank you. If you work on yourself, you'll make a fortune. So it's not about how many hours you log in, right? It's really about creating the life that you want, right? My wife and I, God bless her, we have created an amazing life together. Been married almost 35 years. Next year will be 35 years. Been in practice 37 years. And it's a beautiful life. To have all these kids running around me every single day, hugging me and drawing stuff for me. And one young lady last night's telling me, she's like 9. She said, I made a name. I made a band, and this is what we're doing, and here's my songbook. And to be a part of their families is just magical. But that came because I worked on myself, right? I worked on myself. I worked on my craft. I read books like Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich, probably the most important book you'll ever read to change your brain. Because I came from nothing, right? I slept on a pull-out couch in a one-bedroom apartment, right? My parents gave me nothing when I graduated. So I had to change this poverty mindset that was in my brain to make it okay for people to pay me, to make it okay to ask for money, etc. So that's the most important thing you can do. How do you prepare a proper business plan to start your own practice? How do you attract new patients and maintain the current ones? Great. So to me, the most important business plan is just to be very realistic. But to be realistic, you got to put in the work. And you got to be ready to put in the work. So here is how I got 30 new patients in my practice in my first week, both in my practice in New Jersey when I first started in the 90s and when I first came down here in 2001. I did the same thing, and it's called doing a survey. You're going to do a survey. You're going to walk around with one of your iPads, and you're going to walk around with a stylus, and you're going to go to all the businesses in the area that you are going to open up in, or if you're an associate doc, if your associate doc says it's okay, walk around like all the businesses in your area. Like I have a little office complex, and then we like 30 businesses there, and then there's Kroger's up the road with all the businesses there. So I went in, shook hands with every single person at the right time, not during like lunchtime or breakfast when it's busy, right? Every single person, and I said to them this one question. Hi, I'm Dr. Rubin. I'm opening up a practice in this area. I'm a chiropractor. What do you think about this area? You ask them. You don't go and say, I'm a chiropractor. You should come see me. Here's my free exam. That is, what do you think about this area? And what do you think they all would say? Oh, it's a great area, and I love it, and I go to church here, and I go to, buy stuff here, and this is the best restaurant over there, and they just rave about the area. And then you go on your iPad, you take notes. Go on Notability and take notes. Okay, this church and this place and this restaurant and this business, and excellent. About 80% of them, that'll be the entire conversation, and then after it winds down, after about a minute or so, you say, great, thank you so much for sharing. Can I invite you to my open house in a month? We're opening up in about a month from now. Can I invite you to that? Yeah. Can I get your contact information? Do you have a business card? If they don't have a business card, just write it down on your iPad, whatever. Now you start building up this thing, and then you'll invite them to the open house later on. But that's not how you can get all the new patients. You'll get a few, but that's not how you can do it. 10% of the time, when you mention you're a chiropractor and you're new in town, what are 10% of the time people are going to say? Very good. Did you just say you're a chiropractor? My back hurts, my wife's back hurts, my kid this, right? They'll start talking about stuff, right? And here's what you have to do beforehand. This is the trick beforehand. You need to find an unbelievably important and well-known charity regionally, locally. So when I first did it here in Georgia, there was a family that I heard about through my conversations and stuff, that their house burned down and they're living in their aunt's house, and they didn't have insurance, and they were raising money for this family. So I said to everybody who said, I got this background, and we talked a little bit, and I said, as a way of saying thanks for you having me here and answering all these questions, we are going to offer you the exam. Normally it's $160. It's just $50 if you sign up today, and $25 is going to the Jones family to try to help them after their fire. And everybody, to a person, was like, you know about the Jones fire? Yeah, I heard about Jones fire. I'm trying to raise money for them. Oh my God, can I bring my wife too? And I made instant community by doing this, because not only am I a nice person, and they said, this guy looks like a nice person, and I'm offering them a nice thing, but they also said, wow, and he cares about the community. And we raised a couple of $1,000s for this family, and I went to the church that was raising the money, and I gave them a check, and they're like, holy cow, right? And then they started sending people, right? This was an unbelievable thing. So, but here's the key. How do you think you can get 30 new patients in 1 week? How many people do you need to talk to? 300 minimum. So I talked to 300 people both times in Jersey, office and this office, and you get 10%. You're going to get 10%. But here's the key. You get 30 new patients in your first week. What's going to happen in your second week? They're all going to refer, right? So all you got to do is the most important thing is that first week. You got to get people in that first week, because from that point on, now you have a referral machine, and you keep on going out and doing talks and shaking hands and whatever. But the key thing is you got to get that ball rolling that first week. Because if you get that ball rolling the first week, then momentum will kick in. If you don't do it then, it's not going to be as successful. All right. What red flag should I avoid when reviewing a signed contract? I'll give you this, a great red flag. So 2 quarters ago, one of my interns showed me a contract. It said, you have to work as an associate in my office for 2 years, and if you leave before 2 years, you owe me $43,000 a month for every month you don't work. I'm like, I said, that's not going to fly. That's not going to fly. I don't know where that equation was, but that you have to look at, that's one of the most important things you need to look for in your associate contracts is and this is now I've seen it a bunch of times, different ways that they're putting it. The most important thing you need to do in your associate contract is you need to have something called an escape clause. An escape clause, which means at any time, for any reason, if something is totally crazy, you can leave with no notice. In other words, we had an intern have this happen. They're committing fraud in that office. You know that the FBI is investigating this office. You want out. If you're stuck into your contract, as your license, they're going to investigate also. You got to get out. So you need an escape clause somehow or other in there, even if it's a 2-week escape clause. You need some kind of clause that says if something untold and unforeseen is happening, I have the ability to leave this practice in a short period of time. Don't be locked in. I've seen 3-year contracts where there's no way to get out. I'm like, what happens if you hate it? What happens if something bad happens, right? You need ways out. So the most important thing you need in your associate contract is a escape clause to get out just in case there's something not good happening. Good question. How do you balance running a profitable clinic while making ethical decisions for families who are struggling financially? Great question. I offer hardship cases, scholarship cases. We have for one child with autism every month, one new child, and one new pregnant mama every single month. Where they cannot afford my normal fees, I will work with them. So that's number one way we do things. Number two, we just had a family, for instance, who the husband was the breadwinner, the wife was a stay-at-home mom, and the husband lost their job. They were fired from their job. And she said, I want to continue care with my 3 kids and the rest of the family, but we can't continue care. I said, you make a price that you can afford for the next couple of months till your husband gets a job, and that's going to be your price, because they've been patients for years. I said, I'm not going to have you not be here just because you're temporarily having these issues. And I know that's not, a lot of people say that's not good business sense. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because number one, they don't tell other people. They don't go around saying, Dr. Rubin, this guy in my care. They don't talk about that. what they talk about is, Dr. Rubin is a really nice guy. He really cares about me. He cares about my family. He cares about the care that we're receiving, right? So to me, that's more important. It's far more important to be a good person than to grab every dollar I can out of these people. That's how I practice. Dr. Sid taught me that. He said this is Dr. Sid, I accept all cases regardless of condition or financial ability. I accept all cases regardless of condition or financial ability. Did you have a CA staff at first? Is it necessary? Yes. Do not start a practice without a CA. I don't care if it's your cousin, your mom, your grandma, whoever, your high schooler. You must have another human being in your practice to start with. Why is that? You have a witness. You have to have a witness. And if you do some mobile thing, I have some people who go out there and they do these mobile things, which I think is great. You got to have someone come with you. You can't go in alone. You can't go in alone to a house. And I don't care if you're male, female, it doesn't make a difference. You got to have protection. You got to go with someone else. And to be in an office by yourself with another person, it's your word against theirs, and whose word are they going to believe? Theirs 100% of the time. That's why I think open adjusting is the best, because my CA is sitting right there, and even though we have a boatload of interns on at all times, but my CA is sitting right there, and if I happen to be alone, it's me and a patient and the CA, they are watching me, so they will always corroborate, right? So you've got to protect yourself. In this day and age, don't play games. Don't play games. Because the number one reason why a chiropractor gets sued in this country today is why? It's not malpractice. What is it? Sexual misconduct. Number one reason. And it doesn't make a difference whether it's male or female at this. We're all getting hit with the same things. So you've got to have someone in there. And never go into a room by yourself. Never go into a room by yourself. If you have doors, keep them open. Keep them open. Do not go into a room by yourself. I don't care who comes in with you. Make sure if you have closed doors that you always have someone with you, or the door is open so that nobody can accuse you of anything. How do you balance work with family? Did your son ever come to the office? Yes, my son actually homeschooled for many years until he went to high school in the office. And here's the thing about balance. I want to talk to you about balance. This is a great question. There's no such thing as balance. Balance does not exist. Let me tell you what balance is. When I'm with my wife, I'm with my wife. When I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm here, I'm here. Right? That's balance. Balance is be where you are right now. Right? Ram Dass used to say, be here now. Right? The out of balance is you're at work and you're thinking about your home. And you're at home and you're thinking about work. And you're at school and you're thinking about this. And be wherever you are. That's balance. Having a true balance doesn't really work. And my biggest practice builder is word of mouth. How do we keep patients when they are no longer in pain symptomatic? Great question. The way you keep patients when they're no longer symptomatic is you don't focus on symptoms in the first place. You focus on brain and nerve system. My goal, I tell to every new patient, my goal is make your brain and nerve system work better. And who doesn't want that? And once your brain and nerve system works better, do you want that to not happen anymore? Right? So brain and nerve system, if you focus on pain, and pain is your initial entry in, and that's all they think about, then when their pain's gone, they're gone. When their problem's gone, they're gone. But if you talk about brain and nerve system, then they have an understanding of, I'm maximizing my potential. I'm maximizing my kid's potential. How do you gain money to open a practice? You don't. I started my practice with nothing. I opened up 3 credit cards. So everything I bought from my practice, I bought with 3 credit cards. Do not, unless you have the money, do not, in my opinion, take out a loan and create this absolutely gorgeous new practice, right? If you're opening your own practice, don't buy everything brand new, and don't spend like $300,000 on build out and all the other gorgeous. Keep it simple. Keep it simple in the beginning, and as you make money, you can start spending money to buy. So in my first office, we had wood paneling and horrible floors, and I got all these used chairs and stuff. and these used desks, and everything was just like hodgepodge. But they weren't coming from my office; they were coming from me, right? And then as I was making money, I bought chairs, and then we took the wallpaper down and painted it, and then we got carpet, and people were like, wow, you're getting carpet, this is so cool, right? So it became like this really cool thing that patients were excited and involved, with. If you already got $500,000 in student loans, you want to add another $300,000 in practice, opening up a practice? No, start with nothing. Get some small little place, 800 square feet, that you build out of, right? Versus start with like the best that you don't need the best to start with. So I took those credit cards and I used those 3 credit cards, and 2 of them I chopped up as soon as I bought whatever I needed with them. I got an x-ray machine and some chiropractic tables and stuff. I chopped up everything after that. I just used 1 credit card to pay business expenses, like regular business expenses. And the other credit cards I just paid off. And then here's what I did. How did I pay off my student loans within 10 years? Is I took the money that from the first credit card, and when I was paid that off, what did I do with that money? Buy a Mercedes? No, I put it onto the second credit card. And when I paid off the second credit card, what did I do with that? Put it in the third credit card. And when the third credit card was paid off, what did I do now? Student loans. I was paying 4 times what I was supposed to for student loans. I got them done. Boom, 10 years. So many people, I watched this so many times, so many people graduate and they think the first thing I should do is buy a Mercedes and a big house. No. You don't need a big car to make yourself feel worthy. What you need is a whole lot of patience. So get your patience first and have a plan to say, I'll pay off the credit cards off, then I'll pay my student loans off, then I pay my house off, and my wife and I, we own everything. I owe nothing to nobody. I like that. It's called debt-free living. I like debt-free living. It's a nice way to live. Where the only thing I pay every month is credit card bills and utilities. And credit card bills are just like most of those are utilities anyway. Just bouncing around like this. I owe nothing to nobody. It's a beautiful way to live. It's a carefree way to live because I don't have to worry about anybody knocking on my door. Anybody looking down on what I'm doing. So I think that's a great way to do that. Okay. Any tips when doing contract negotiation for an associate? Absolutely hire a lawyer to read over the contract. 100%. You are not contract savvy. So have a lawyer look at it, but don't have a lawyer look at the first contract you get. You look at it, you decide, is there any crazy clauses in it that you can't do? And read the contract. Don't just skim it. Read it, understand each thing. Negotiate that contract, and once it's negotiated, then you get a lawyer. Because otherwise, you pay for the lawyer 3 or 4 times. Show you the first contract. Show you the negotiation. Show you the second. Show you the third. Wait until you've done. Are we okay with this contract right now? Your future boss, everything's good? Okay, now I'm going to show it to my lawyer. Make sure it's all kosher, right? So spend the money 1 time, spend the money 3 times. Because a lawyer, to read a contract costs you between $1,000 and $3,000 minimum. So, but if you have them look at it over and over and over again, they're going to bill you every 10 minutes is another $160, right? So don't do that. Is a coach worth it for opening up a practice? It depends. It depends. I am not very coachable. I don't respond well to being told what to do. I don't respond well to someone looking over my shoulder, except for my wife. So I'm accountable to her, right? So if you have a partner or a friend that you're accountable for, then you guys can be accountable buddies. My wife is my accountability buddy. The problem with a coach is you're going to pay a lot of money for them. And are you really going to get what you need by doing that? I'm not saying they're bad or wrong. I think for some people they're great. If you like being coached and you want that, then go for it. But if you're like me and you're kind of headstrong and having someone look over your shoulder and tell you what to do and pretend that they're rah-rahing you and stuff, and having these calls you have to do every week and these things, blah, blah, I don't want, and having to pay someone, that's my opinion. Favorite EHR? We have been using One EHR for a long time, but we're switching out of it, and we're going to Jane. Everybody's talking about Jane and ICPA, so we're going to Jane also, and we're just transitioning. And Jane has been so far amazing in the transition period. They answer my questions like this. Every time I call them, they're calling me back almost instantly. Every time I email them, they email me back. I'm very impressed with Jane, and it's like $100 a month. So that's almost a no-brainer. So I'm very impressed with Jane. I will let you know more once we're going Jane January 1st, like official. So I'll know more then. Where do you recommend finding pediatric or pregnant patients? How do you explain why pediatric chiropractic care to medical doctors? I don't explain pediatric chiropractic care to medical doctors. I have my patients do it. And the way we do that is a pediatrician, someone comes in and has a pediatrician, then I send that pediatrician, if that's how they came to me, I send the pediatrician our notes, right? So I develop a relationship with certain pediatricians because they send me people and I send them information back, and of course with the signed documentation, okay from the patient. So I don't try to educate people. I let my patients are the ones who give me the in. Right? So I don't try to knock on doors or make phone calls or whatever. All these pediatricians are overwhelmingly busy. But you make a relationship through your patients. That's the best way to do it. And how do you find pediatric pregnant patients? They're everywhere. But the best places to go is where they are. So go to churches or synagogues or something like that. They have runs, they have carnivals, they have fairs, right? That's where you go. You go where they go, right? So do talks to these places, do talks to the church women's group and men's group or whatever, Rotary Club, et cetera, Get yourself out there, make yourself known as a great resource. How do you know you are ready to open a practice on your own? How do you not get scammed as a new grad getting hired? You're ready to open up a practice when working for someone else doesn't sit right with you. And I was an associate for 6 months because my parents told me I shouldn't open up a business yet right out of school. And it was the worst 6 months I've ever had. And you can talk to my wife about it. She'll corroborate. After a while, Lisa and I were saying, if I'm working 6 days a week, 80 hours a week getting paid this, I could work 6 days a week for myself and get paid all that money would be mine. So that's why I went out and did it, myself. So, and how you know you're not getting scammed is if you guys talk about something like bonuses. This is why I left my associate position. This person, after I signed the contract, had told me that, there's all these bonuses, this bonus, this. But then when it came down to hey, I'm working 80 hours a week, I'm bringing all these new patients. Oh, I meant this, I meant this, right? So the old saying, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen, right? That was my mistake, naive Drew. But I got out that quickly, and because I had an escape clause. I had a year contract. I got out in 6 months. What are red flags? Okay, we're going to talk about this here. What is one thing new grads should look for? I talked about this. How do you buy or start a practice? How do you get new patients when starting practice? Okay, great. I already talked about that. But I'm going to add a corollary. So some of you are going to go into existing practices either as an associate or you're going to buy a practice. Someone's going to be retiring or stepping down or moving or whatever. So this is what I did when I bought a practice of a friend of mine. And I think I might have mentioned this a little bit, but I'm going to mention it to you again. Create a dinner for the outgoing doc. Or if you're joining a practice as an associate, have the doc create a dinner as a thank you to all his patients. But the ticket in is everybody has got to bring a non-patient guest who's interested in chiropractic. And then at that dinner, you will do a 10-minute talk about how chiropractor changed your life in whatever way, and then you will go have a couple of current patients come up and talk about how awesome you are or how awesome the doc is who's leaving. And then you go around table to table and say, when are you coming in? When are you coming in? When are you coming in? Introduce yourself. Jay, thank you so much for bringing John in. Hey, John, when are you coming in? When can we get you? Morning or afternoon. So when I did this, when I bought a practice of my friends, we had 50 patients that were his patients, and then they brought 50 guests. 48 out of 50 signed up. That was a busy month. 48 new patients in 1 month. So huge way to build a practice. And same thing you can do is if you're an associate, you become an associate, and you say to the doc, I want to do a dinner. I want to do a dinner. I'd like a thank you dinner for all your patients and for welcoming me and stuff. But this is how we're going to do it. We're going to invite all the patients. It's free for everybody, but the patient, the way they get in is it's a non-patient guest who's interested in care. To make them do the work for you, right? They're like pre-framed. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, same questions over and over. It's amazing. What equipment would you recommend when starting a practice, a pediatric practice? I personally think X-ray is super important. A lot of people don't, but I don't. I think it's critical to have an X-ray in your office, not just for the adult patients, but for the kiddos too, who are always breaking things and slamming their heads into walls and stuff. So I think it's very important to have X-ray in your practice, but that's a big investment. It's a big investment. If you can't do it right in the beginning, I certainly recommend it. I think the most important thing all you really need for a pediatric and perinatal practice is a couple of tables, maybe some pregnancy pillows if you can't afford like Lloyd elevation tables or Zenith tables, a couple of pregnancy pillows and a phone and some chairs. That's it. That's it. If you took away my X-ray machine that I bought when I was first in practice, my first practice I opened up for $5,000. That's buying a whole bunch of used things, having some used things that my parents and my aunt and uncle donated, to me to start everything up. And so I just bought a couple of flat benches. I had some pregnancy pillows. I had a phone. We didn't even have a computer when I first opened up. You have to get one of those too. And make sure you don't use your personal computer. Your office computer is not your personal computer. You need to have a whole separate computer system for your office. Don't take whatever you have and use it again. Spend that. $600, $800 to get yourself a nice laptop or desktop. You don't want to use your personal computer. How do you propose a plan to a bank you're familiar with versus non-familiar? What's better? Don't go to a bank. Don't go to a bank. Don't waste your money. The interest rates and the craziness you don't need a loan if you start the practice the way we talked about, right? If you start small and build up, you will never need a loan, right? You already got loans. Pay those loans off, right? Start small, build big, right? Don't start big. So my suggestion is don't bother going to a bank because it's just a harder thing to deal with. How money to be saved to start a practice? You're not going to save money to start a practice. You start a practice, then you save money, right? I'm telling you, the reason I went as associate is that's exactly what my parents said. Save some money and then you'll start a practice. After 6 months, I had negative amount of money, right? It didn't work. It did not work. So don't, unless you happen to stumble into something where you get unbelievable amounts of money for practicing. One of my patients, my interns got into a PI practice after she left our office, which did not make any sense whatsoever. But she was making crazy money in that, right? But here's the problem, is that she wanted to leave, but now she couldn't leave because now she has a lifestyle of that money, right? So you got to be very cautious. Money creates something, right? Wouldn't it be better to be your money than to have someone else paying you and now you're stuck, right? I don't like stuck. Stuck doesn't do well with me. What's the best possible marketing strategy for new patients? Social media. Social media. And you've got to have a website. You must have a website. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok does not constitute as social media enough, right? You need to have a website because Post your stuff on Facebook, post Instagram, post TikTok, but then you have to get them to your website. Facebook alone is not enough because once that scrolls past, it's gone. But you have a website that's an anchor. You need that anchor. So absolutely you need to have social media marketing, but make sure you have a website, even if it's a free one from Wix. Get yourself a website. It's absolutely critical. All right, that's all the questions. Thank you guys so much. Those are